Hi everybody. Sorry I did not post a reading video yesterday. Honestly, I was totally out of it and just spaced it off. So we're going to pick up with chapter 8. Hopefully you were in the Zoom call yesterday so that you know what happened in chapter 7. But I will do a brief recap just to give you guys, if you didn't, an understanding of where we're at in the book. So, I guess you have to go even back a little bit further. So we know that Jonas was in the ceremony of 12, and he had been waiting and waiting and waiting for his turn, and they skipped him, and there was a reason for it, but obviously he was freaking out the whole time, and come to find out that Jonas has been selected as the new receiver of memory. And so we leave off with Jonas being skipped in chapter 7. And then in chapter 8 is where we left off. So poor Jonas is freaking out, having no idea what's going on. And we are now in chapter 8. So let's go ahead and read. The audience was clearly ill at ease. They applauded at the final assignment, but the applause was piecemeal, no longer a crescendo of united enthusiasm. There were murmurs of confusion. Jonas moved his hands together, clapping, but it was an automatic, meaningless gesture that he wasn't even aware of. His mind had shut out all of the earlier emotions. Sorry, guys. The anticipation, excitement, pride, and even the happy kinship with his friends. Now he felt only humiliation and terror. The chief elder waited until the uneasy applause subsided. Then she spoke again. I know, she said in her vibrant, gracious voice, that you are all concerned, that you feel I have made a mistake. She smiled. The community, relieved from its discomfort barely slightly by her benign statement, seemed to breathe more easily. It was very silent. Jonas looked up. I have caused you anxiety, she said. I apologize to my community. Her voice flowed over the assembled crowd. We accept your apology, they all uttered together. Jonas, she said, looking down at him, I apologize to you in particular. I caused you anguish. I accept your apology, Jonas replied shakily. Please come to the stage now. Earlier that day, dressing in his own dwelling, he had practiced the jaunty, self-assured walk that he hoped he could make to the stage when his turn came. After all that was forgotten, all of that was forgotten now. He simply willed himself to stand, to move his feet that felt weighted and clumsy, to go forward, up the steps, and across the platform until he stood at her side. Reassuringly, she placed her arm across his tense shoulders. Jonas has not been assigned, she informed the crowd, and his heart sank. Then she went on, Jonas has been selected. He blinked. What did that mean? He felt a collective questioning stir from the audience. They too were puzzled. In a firm, commanding voice, she announced, Jonas has been selected as our next receiver of memory. Then he heard the gasp, the sudden intake of breath, drawn sharply in astonishment by each of the seated citizens. He saw their faces, the eyes widened in awe. And still he did not understand. Such a selection is very, very rare, the chief elder told the audience. Our community has only one receiver. It is he who trains his successor. We have had our current receiver for a very long time, she went on. Jonas followed her eyes and saw that she was looking at one of the elders. The committee of elders was sitting together in a group, and the chief elder's eyes were now on one who sat in the midst but seemed oddly separate from them. It was a man Jonas had never noticed before, a bearded man with pale eyes. He was watching Jonas intently. We failed in our last selection, the chief elder said solemnly. It was 10 years ago, when Jonas was just a toddler. I will not dwell on the experience because it causes us all terrible discomfort. Jonas didn't know what she was referring to, but he could sense the discomfort of the audience. They shifted uneasily in their seats. We have not been hasty this time, she continued. We could not afford another failure. Sometimes, she went on, speaking now in a lighter tone, relaxing the tension in the auditorium, we are not entirely certain about the assignments. Even after the most painstaking observation, sometimes we worry that the one assigned might not develop through training every attribute necessary. 11s are still children after all. What we observe as playfulness and patience, the requirements to become a nurturer, could with maturity be revealed as simply foolishness and indolence. So we continued to observe during training and to modify behavior when necessary. But the receiver in training cannot be observed, cannot be modified. That is stated quite clearly in the rules. He is to be alone, apart, while he is prepared by the current receiver for the job which is most honored in our community. Apart? Alone? Jonas listened with increasing unease. Therefore, the selection must be sound. It must be a unanimous choice of the committee. They have no doubts, however fleeting. If during the process an elder reports a dream of uncertainty, that dream has the power to set a candidate aside instantly. Jonas was identified as a possible receiver many years ago. We have observed him meticulously. There were no dreams of uncertainty. He has shown all of the qualities that a receiver must have. With her hands still firmly on his shoulders, the chief elder listed the qualities. Intelligence, she said. We are all aware that Jonas has been a top student throughout his school days. Integrity, she said next. Jonas has, like all of us, committed minor transgressions, she smiled at him. We expect that. We hoped also that he would present himself promptly for chastisement, and he has always done so. Courage, she went on. Only one of us here today has ever undergone the rigorous training required of a receiver. He, of course, is the most important member of the community, the current receiver. It was he who reminded us again and again of the courage required. Jonas, she said, turning to him, but speaking in a voice that the entire community could hear. The training required of you involves pain. Physical pain. He felt fear flutter within him. You have never experienced that. Yes, you have scraped your knees and falls from your bicycle. Yes, you have crushed your finger in a door last year. Jonas nodded, agreeing as he recalled the incident and its accompanying misery. But you will be faced now, she explained gently, with pain of a magnitude that none of us can comprehend because it is beyond our experience. The receiver himself was not able to describe it, only to remind us that you would be faced with it, that you would need immense courage. We cannot prepare you for that. But we feel certain that you are brave, she said to him. He did not feel brave at all, not now. The fourth essential attribute, the chief elder said, is wisdom. Jonas has not yet acquired that. The acquisition of wisdom will come through his training. We are convinced that Jonas has the ability to acquire wisdom. That is what we looked for. Finally, the receiver must have one more quality, and it is one which I can only name, but not describe. I do not understand it. You members of the committee will not understand it either. Perhaps Jonas will, because the current receiver has told us that Jonas already has this quality. He calls it the capacity to see beyond. Okay, so I want to go through my notes really quick. So Jonas obviously has now been named the receiver of memory. And just to give you guys some context, what the receiver does is he literally has every single memory of the world, like our world, all the history that's happened from way, way, way back when, up until the community now, is all stored with the giver, or the receiver, is all stored with the receiver, okay? So this man has all of the knowledge in the world, and he keeps it for the community, because remember, nobody else in the community knows anything except for what the government tells them, okay? And so now Jonas is being selected to take over this new role. So, and they also listed out the 5 things that he would need and why they picked him to be the receiver. So the first thing is intelligence, and that's obvious, right? We don't want some dummy holding all of the memories of the world in their brains, right? That's just a given. But integrity is a big one, right? So in case you're so confused about what it means to have integrity, that just means like when you mess up, you've made a mistake, you did something you weren't supposed to, instead of trying to cover up the fact that you did that, or if you get in trouble and you're having to face the consequences, lying about it, you come clean or come forward and tell the truth. Own up to the fact that you did make that mistake. That's what having integrity is. Then we get to courage, and the chief elder says that the reason Jonas needs this is because he is going to experience real physical pain. Can you imagine? You're 12 years old, you're up on the stage after being skipped and anticipating this huge big thing, and the person who has the most power in your government is telling you that you're going to have to face real physical pain. That'd be kind of scary. And poor Jonas is definitely going to have to go through that. Then we have wisdom, which again is another one that makes sense, especially for someone that holds all of the world's memories and knowledge. Of course, you're going to have wisdom with that, but it comes as he gets more of his training, as the chief elder said. And then finally, the capacity to see beyond, which is connected to the changing apple. We still don't know how the apple changes, but I just want you to know that these two are connected. The capacity to see beyond is what is changing the apple for Jonas. Okay? All right, let's get back to reading. We're almost done with chapter 8. Let's see. The chief elder looked at Jonas with a question in her eyes. The audience watched him too. They were silent. For a moment he froze, consumed with despair. He didn't have it, the whatever she had said. He didn't know what it was. Now was the moment when he would have to confess, to say, "No, I don't. I can't," and throw himself on their mercy, ask their forgiveness, to explain that he had been wrongly chosen and that he was not the right one at all. But then, when he looked out across the crowd, the sea of faces, the thing happened again. The thing that happened with the apple. They changed. He blinked and it was gone. His shoulders straightened slightly. Briefly, he felt a tiny sliver of sureness for the first time. She was still watching him. They all were. "I think it's true," he told the chief elder in the community. "I don't understand it yet. I don't know what it is, but sometimes I see something, and maybe it's the beyond." She took her arm from his shoulders. "Jonas," she said, speaking not to him alone, but to the entire community of which he was a part, "you will be trained to be our next receiver of memory. We thank you for your childhood." Then she turned and left the stage. Left him there alone, standing and facing the crowd, which began spontaneously the collective murmur of his name. Jonas. It was a whisper at first, hushed and barely audible. Jonas, Jonas. Then louder, Jonas, Jonas, Jonas. With the chant, Jonas knew the community was accepting him in his new role, giving him life the way they had given the new child Caleb. His heart swelled with gratitude and pride, but at the same time he was filled with fear. He did not know what this selection meant. He did not know what was to become, or what he would become, or what would become of him. All right, so big stuff is happening, right? That's exciting. So we are slowly making our way up the rising action to our climax of the story, and we now know that Jonas's job assignment is to be the receiver of memory. And soon we're going to figure out exactly what that means in a little bit. But before we kind of sign off of here, I want you to kind of sit and think and put yourself in Jonas's shoes. So you're Jonas. At the beginning of the story, we know that he was feeling pretty nervous and excited about the ceremony. We know the day of the ceremony, he was practicing his walk and feeling really confident and was really excited to get his job assignment. And then at the ceremony, they totally skip over him and he is freaking out. He thinks he's done something wrong. Maybe the committee's messed up. He has no idea what's happening. And he is really scared and embarrassed, right? And then they tell him that he's been selected to be the receiver of memory and that he is going to experience real pain in his training. In front of the entire community that he's grew up in, he receives this information. That has got to be the most terrifying thing a person can experience. And at the age of 12, right? He's your age. That's nuts. So poor Jonas has got some big changes coming ahead. As always, guys, if you have any questions, please email or message me. You do have a Chapter 8 response that is due at the end of today, so make sure you get that turned in. And that's all I have for you. Thanks, guys.